Have you ever tried so hard to love someone and still felt like you were failing? In the last 12 weeks living in the US, my marriage almost collapsed, not because we stopped loving each other, but because we stopped understanding each other. One wrong word, one misunderstood tone, one silent night too many. If you've ever felt your heart drifting away from someone you promised forever to, this story will show you how small, steady love, and even simple English, can save everything. 12 weeks of turbulence. Imagine sitting on a long flight where the seat keeps shaking, the seatbelt digs into your stomach, and the pilot stays suspiciously silent. That was exactly my first 12 weeks of marriage in the United States. You think love is a first-class ticket, stable, fancy, with champagne always ready. But real love? It's more like economy class. Cramped, noisy, and someone might throw up. Usually emotionally that we truly love each other. But we love in two different languages with two different nervous systems. I can speak English well enough to buy groceries, but not well enough to argue intelligently. And him, the native speaker, sometimes talks so fast my brain enters slow motion mode. Every night we start with a sweet sentence and end with a full grammar war. Science says the brain activates fight or flight when hearing a stressed tone of voice. Now picture this. An Asian wife freshly moved to the US, terrified because the word fine can mean good or you're about to die. Meanwhile, my husband is simply saying, "Everything is fine." My brain translates it into, "You don't love me anymore." Basically, my nervous system throws tantrums on my behalf that we fought about microscopic things. Why didn't you text me when you arrived? Why did you reply okay? Instead of okay? Why did you leave the fridge door half open? Why is the remote always missing? These questions look tiny like commas, but commas can change the entire meaning of a sentence. Some nights we ate dinner in silence. It felt like practicing English listening without subtitles. I saw his lips moving, but the emotions behind the words? Completely lost. I began to fear speaking. He began to fear listening. Our marriage turned into the most stressful English masterclass on earth. But here's the weird thing. Even inside stupid arguments, there were tiny moments when my heart spoke better English than my mouth. When he wrapped his arm around me as I fell asleep. When he made coffee exactly the way I like. When he tried to pronounce a Vietnamese word and looked like a choking cat. We realized something loud and painful. Relationships don't explode because of huge fights. They slowly crack from tiny misunderstandings. Day after day, I used to believe that love alone was enough. That feeling something deeply was the whole game. But it turns out, love must be translated into actions the other person can understand. And these 12 chaotic weeks? They are the worst translation, but also the first chapter of a love that refuses to give up. Maybe steady love isn't soft and gentle. Maybe it's messy, confusing, and full of, "Wait, what did you mean?" Maybe consistency isn't boring. Maybe it's the bravest thing we do. When "I'm okay" means, "I'm breaking." Here's something no one warns you about. In a marriage between two languages, silence is not peace, it's panic. When you don't have the right words, you don't disappear, you just become quiet, and quiet can look a lot like not caring. One night, after yet another misunderstanding over absolutely nothing, I locked myself in the bathroom. I stared at the tiles like they were a dictionary that refused to help me. My husband knocked softly and asked, "Are you okay?" And the old me, the Asian me, answered the one sentence every immigrant wife should have banned. "I'm okay." Science moment. Psychologists say "I'm okay" is one of the most commonly used avoidance responses. It hides vulnerability. It creates a wall. The brain tries to survive embarrassment by shutting emotion down. But love can't read minds. It reads words, tone, and silence. And that night, silence screamed louder than anything. Inside my head, I was screaming, "I feel alone. I miss my family. I don't know how to love you in your language yet." But outside, two cold syllables, "Okay." He stepped away. Not angry, just hurt. And that hurts worse. Our hearts were having a full opera performance while our mouths were speaking in subtitles. Delayed, short, missing context. When English is not your first language, emotions always run faster than grammar. You feel too much but you say too little. And the result is a disaster. The person you love most becomes the person who misunderstands you most. I sat there thinking of how English has words like heartbroken, homesick, miscommunication, overthinking, but none of them sounded as heavy as what was happening in my chest. I tried to cry quietly so he wouldn't hear, because even my tears were shy in this country. Then something ridiculous happened that he slid a small note under the door. Just one sentence. "I can't help you if you don't let me in." Boom. My emotional Wi-Fi suddenly reconnected. Love is not guessing. Love is not decoding. Love is not pretending everything is fine when everything is drowning. In that awkward bathroom moment, I finally realized, marriage is not about being strong. Marriage is about allowing someone to see you when you are weak. So I opened the door, literally and emotionally. I didn't suddenly become fluent in expressing my feelings, but I started trying, slowly, badly, honestly. And when I whispered, "I'm actually not okay," it was the most fluent English I had spoken all month. Maybe healing starts with the sentence we are most afraid to say. English in the kitchen. In our kitchen, English found its own special space. Not inside books, not inside apps, but inside our everyday moments. It started with one simple decision. If we cook together, we speak English together. No rules. No pressure. Just real life. Just real words. Every evening when the cutting board hit the counter and the vegetables rolled across the table, English rolled into our sentences too. "Can you pass me the salt?" "Cut the onions into small pieces." "Stir gently, not too fast." These weren't grammar exercises. They were little acts of teamwork. We weren't trying to be perfect, we were just trying to understand each other. And understand the recipe, of course. At first it was messy. Very messy that we burned the vegetables because we spent too much time searching for the right words. We confused flour with flour and laughed as powder exploded in the air. We asked, "Is it tablespoon or teaspoon?" And sometimes dinner arrived 1 hour late. But every mistake gave us a new memory and a new vocabulary word. Cooking in English became a daily adventure that we learned adjectives by describing flavors. Salty, sweet, spicy, bitter. We learned verbs by tasting progress. Boil, fry, chop, bake, taste, served out. We learned patience by waiting for water to boil, because even water, like language, needs time to get warm. The kitchen turned into our own classroom. Not one with walls and chairs, but one with steam, aroma, and laughter. And we discovered something beautiful. When hands are busy, hearts are open. When food is shared, courage is shared too. There were nights when confidence disappeared, when someone sighed and whispered, "I can't say it." But the sizzling pan didn't stop, and neither did we doubt. We supported each other with small encouraging sentences like, "Try again. It's okay. I know what you mean." And those tiny sentences tasted sweeter than dessert. Bit by bit, English stopped feeling foreign. It became another ingredient in our meal. Like oil, like garlic, like love. We didn't just study English, we seasoned our lives with it. We stirred our fears away. We cooked confidence into every dish. And the best part, when the meal was ready and we sat down to enjoy it, the flavor always felt richer. Not because we used perfect grammar, but because we used English to create something together. And the kitchen, mistakes didn't embarrass us, they fed us. Words didn't separate us, they served us. And every dinner reminded us of one truth. Learning a language isn't about being correct, it's about sharing life one sentence at a time. English at the dinner table. The kitchen taught us how to cook in English, but the dinner table taught us how to talk in English. It was no longer about following a recipe. It was about following each other's hearts. Dinner used to be silent, just chewing, scrolling, thinking. But when we decided that English would join us at the table, silence had to step aside. We created a new rule. Every dinner must include 3 stories, one about the past, one about the present, and one about a dream for tomorrow. First, the stories were short and shy. Work was okay. I'm tired. Maybe vacation someday. Those sentences weren't enough to truly share how we felt, so we tried again. And again we learned to use more words, not to be perfect, but to be known. We practiced questions like, "What made you smile today? What was the hardest moment? What are you looking forward to?" Simple questions until the answers came from the deepest places. Some nights, laughter filled the room. We mispronounced, we over-explained, we created completely new English words that do not exist, and then laughed even louder. Those dinners felt like sunshine. Other nights, emotions knocked on the door. Real marriage emotions, jealousy, loneliness, fear of change. Words got stuck, sentences broke in half. I don't know how to say this in English. But instead of walking away, we leaned closer and said, "Say it slowly. I'm listening." And that changed everything, because English wasn't just vocabulary anymore. It became a bridge. Across misunderstandings, across cultural differences, across all the things we never learned how to say in our own language. We discovered phrases that healed us. Thank you for trying. I didn't understand, but I want to. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Those words tasted warmer than the food. The dinner table became our safe space, where mistakes were forgiven, where grammar was optional, where feelings were the main topic of conversation. We started speaking slower, listening longer, loving deeper. Sometimes we still run out of words. Sometimes a tear falls before a sentence arrives. But even that is progress. It means we are not hiding anymore. English at the dinner table didn't make us fluent overnight, but it made us honest at IT, made us brave at IT, made us closer. And somewhere between passing the water and passing the pepper, we realized something. Learning a language can rebuild a marriage if both people are willing to talk and even more willing to listen. Midnight tears in English. You don't really notice the weight of language until it shows up between two people who love each other. The nights in our small apartment started to feel longer, heavier, like the clock was judging us for not knowing how to simply understand each other. And it's funny. Everyone tells you that love is a universal language. But try explaining the pain in your chest using vocabulary you learned from Duolingo. It doesn't land the same. There was one night, exactly week 9 of our 12-week roller coaster, when everything boiled over. We had argued earlier that day about something small, something stupid, a plate left in the sink, a missed call. But tiny things hit harder when you're already exhausted from fighting invisible battles. Immigration stress, cultural shock, expectations that don't belong to you, and English, always English, sitting in the middle like an uninvited referee. That night, he said gently, "Talk to me. In English. I want to understand." And that sentence hurt more than any argument. Because the truth is, being asked to speak a language you're not fluent in feels like being asked to confess your deepest fears while holding your breath underwater. Why heart knew exactly what was wrong, why mouth did not. I tried. Words spilled out, broken, clumsy, half translated from Vietnamese emotions into English survival mode. I feel like I'm always wrong. I try. But you don't see. I am tired. He stared at me, confused by the grammar, not the meaning, so I tried again. I don't want to fight. I want us. I want home. That one landed. Not because the sentence was perfect English, it wasn't. It was because the voice shaking on every word told the truth louder than any dictionary could. He stepped closer, I stepped back. We didn't know what to do with our hands. English isn't great at guiding body language. Then he asked quietly, "Why are you crying?" I wanted to scream. Because I hate feeling stupid in the language you dream in. But all I managed was, "Because I want you to hear me." We stood in silence, both hurting, both wanting to fix it, but neither knowing the right verbs to use. Finally, he said, "Come here." 2 words. Simple. Native level affection that I drowned in relief. He wrapped his arms around me like he was shielding us from every misunderstanding ever invented. My English wasn't perfect that night, but my tears translated just fine. Love doesn't need subtitles, but sometimes it needs patience, slower speech, and the courage to say imperfect sentences at midnight when your heart is tired of pretending to be fluent. We didn't solve everything that night, but we chose to keep trying. And in marriage, choosing again is the closest thing to fluency I've found. Learning to say, "I love you" again. There is a strange thing that happens when you move to another country for love. You start doubting the very thing that brought you there. Not because the love disappears, but because stress starts speaking louder than the heart. After our midnight breakdown, I woke up the next morning with swollen eyes and a head full of unfinished sentences. He made coffee. I made silence. "Good morning." he said, trying a smile that I wanted to answer normally. But the first thing that came out was, "Do you still love me?" In English so shaky that even I didn't recognize my own voice, he paused. Not to think, but because he realized how deep the question went. Then he said something that surprised me. "Yes. But do you still feel loved?" That question hit like a truth bomb. It's not the same thing. You can love someone and still fail to make them feel loved, especially when you're constantly translating your heart into a language that doesn't have the right words for your culture's feelings. I in Vietnamese. You is heavy, deep, rooted in sacrifice. I in English. Love is tossed around casually. I love tacos. I love that show. I love your shirt. How do you use the same word to describe the person you crossed the ocean for? So I tried explaining. In my language, when I say I love you, it means I choose you even when it's hard. It means I stay even when I'm tired. He actually listened, and asked me to teach him how to say it. Not the simple textbook on but the way we say it when we're scared to lose someone. Thuong on. He repeated after me. The accent was terrible, but the effort was perfect. Then he looked straight at me and said, "I want you to feel loved in your language and in mine." We spent that morning practicing tiny sentences, the ones couples in long marriages say without thinking. I'm here. I hear you. I'm trying. I choose you. English suddenly became less of a wall, more of a bridge. A clumsy, creaky bridge, sure, but a bridge we were building together. Later, he kissed my forehead and whispered, "I don't need perfect English from you. I need honesty." It turns out, fluency isn't about grammar or pronunciation at all. It's about saying truths that scare you, out loud, even when your voice breaks halfway through. We didn't magically become experts in love or language that day. But we learned something huge. When you love someone, you don't wait for perfect words. You use the words you have, again and again. And that was the day we started saying "I love you," like a promise, not a phrase. The silent promise. You know what's funny? The biggest turning point in our relationship didn't come from loud conversations or perfect communication. It came from silence, the kind that doesn't hurt. The kind that says, "I'm here." One evening, we sat on the couch watching a show neither of us understood fully. Danish subtitles. Fast English dialogue. My brain was working overtime just to keep up. Normally I would feel dumb, small, like the slowest person in the room. But that night he grabbed my hand gently without looking away from the screen and held it tight. No words. No corrections about pronunciation. No frustrated sighs. Just warmth. It was such a small act that the old me would have missed it. But the new me, the one who survived sleepless nights, homesickness, and fear of not being enough, I saw it clearly. He wasn't holding my hand because he wanted to fix anything. He was holding it because he didn't want me to go through it alone. Later, he paused the movie and asked, "Do you want me to explain?" I shook my head. "No. I just want you to stay beside me." And he did. Sometimes the most loving sentence in English is the one you never speak. In immigrant marriages, love is tested in strange ways. Not by betrayals, not by big fights, but by everyday frustration. When you can't find the right word, when you take too long to reply, when you mispronounce something and someone laughs, it's easy to feel like a burden, like your partner is speeding through life while you're stuck, trying to translate your feelings into a language your mouth still can't control. But that night I realized something powerful. Love doesn't need subtitles. Love is fluent first. Words catch up later. He didn't try to teach me. He didn't try to rush me. He didn't say, "Don't worry, your English will get better." Instead, he showed me that my worth wasn't tied to how perfectly I spoke. He squeezed my hand again and said softly, "We'll learn together. Not you'll learn, not you need to learn, but we." The smallest word with the biggest promise. So we sat there, two imperfect people watching a story in a language neither of us fully controlled. And for once I didn't feel behind. I felt chosen. Love isn't always loud or poetic. Sometimes it's a quiet presence, a warm palm holding yours through confusion, a reminder that even when you don't feel confident, you are enough. Right here, right now, with the English you have. The consistency that saves us. Imagine a love that doesn't explode or sparkle. A love that doesn't shout forever from rooftops. A love that simply stays. That's what I discovered in these 12 chaotic weeks. Our relationship didn't magically heal in a single moment. There was no Hollywood kiss in the rain, no dramatic apology scene, no perfect English conversation that finally proved I belonged. There were just small choices, tiny steady acts repeated over and over again. Every morning he makes coffee. Every evening he asks how my day went, even when I answer with broken grammar. Every night he pulls the blanket up over my shoulders before turning off the light. That's what consistency looks like. Not fancy, not loud, but real. There were days when I still felt like a failure, stumbling over English verbs, missing jokes because I needed an extra 5 seconds to understand. Days when loneliness crept into bed before he came home from work. Days when I wondered whether love could survive translation issues, cultural gaps, and two people trying to decode each other. But then consistency would show up again like a quiet guardian reminding me, you are loved even on days you don't feel lovable. Here's something science says. When the brain experiences repeated reassurance, it rewires itself to believe safety is possible again. Tiny actions, done daily, change everything. And marriage, it's exactly that. Not perfection, not performance. Just two people choosing each other, especially when language fails, especially when hearts are tired. Last Sunday we were walking back from the grocery store. He carried all the heavy bags because he knows the cold hurts my fingers. I looked at him, messy hair, sleepy eyes, and it hit me. Love is not the fireworks of the beginning. It is the steady flame that refuses to go out. After everything, misunderstandings, tears, fears, we are still here. Not because we never wanted to leave, but because we kept choosing to stay. So yes, maybe my English isn't fluent yet. Maybe my feelings sometimes get lost in translation. Maybe life in a new country is still scary and confusing. But love gives me a reason to try again tomorrow. Not a loud love. Not a perfect love, but a steady love, a love that says, I will show up. Again and again and again. And that, more than any big romantic gesture, is what heals hearts. Consistency beats chaos. Every single time.